So what I'm going to do is just start with one of the first residencies that I was invited to, which was Skowhegan. It was right after graduate school. And after finishing with graduate school, I didn't want to make the work I was making anymore during graduate school. And I wanted to start a totally new body of work. And so while I was there, it's a very crowded residency and there's not much personal space there. So I spent a lot of time in the car that I had there, just, drawing and really scratching my head and thinking, what am I going to do now that I'm finished with graduate school? And what I did was I was just looking through the car manual and looking at how the car was made. And before I knew it, I was starting to use the car as a tool, a painting tool. And so I really explored the entire car. But the first thing I did was I began to create paintings using the rear windshield wiper of the car. And here it is. So this was an apparatus that was plugged into the power source was the battery, and then the windshield wiper spread the car fluids that were inserted into that container. So in this case, I used transmission fluids. I used the fluids of the car that made it run, so dirty motor oil, power fluid, motor oil, transmission fluid in this case. And it never dried. The paper was cut to the size and the shape of the rear windshield of the car. And it continuously kind of came down into the space and created puddles within the gallery. So it was kind of like this moving installation of these dripping pieces. I also created rubbings of the car, and in this case, this is an engine rubbing. And I did this with a graphite stick and on paper that was cut to the size and the shape of the hood of the car. So what appeared out of this was just the uttermost top of the engine. And to me, it was like this very abstract drawing where you could see, details of what was in the engine. For example, that's where you would put the fluid for the washing fluid for the windows. But the rest was missing, so it really looked like an excavation of form to me. And I also made a very long rubbing of the entire car. And this was called Subaru Skin. And so it started at the driver's seat and ended up at the driver's door, and ended up at the driver's door. And it was kind of an unraveling of the outside of the car. So you could see all the scratches, and it was very detailed when you got very close to it. I ran over frescoes with the car wheel. I was just really trying to use every and any part of the car as an art-making tool or apparatus. Once I came back to reality, when I was out of Skowhegan and that wonderful 10 weeks there, I began to think of everyday appliances as painting tools. And in this case, this is a waffle iron. It's a bunch of waffle iron. And what I did was I cooked house paint in the waffle iron, and I used Pam as the separator. And I created these kind of very thick paintings on canvas and on paper in this case. So they became very architectural for me with these sort of grid-like forms that were bunched together. And it was a very complicated process, even though it looked simple, because it had to be cooked for the right time period, or else it would have just stuck to the machine. So there was a whole process that went on with this. And I also ended up doing a residency with the Dudonnet paper mill in New York, where I began to cook different kinds of paper into creating these large paperworks using a similar method with the waffle iron. I also began using, and this is a period in my career where I was doing a lot of different projects at once. So everything I'm showing you kind of happened within a period of just a few years, where I was really exploring mark making with everyday object tools. And in this case, I transformed a lawnmower into a hot rod lawnmower by adding big tractor wheels on the back and painting it. And with this, I created paintings. This was the site of where everything happened. So here, what you see are splats of color, but we're looking from 5 stories up and looking down. And what was there in reality was these self-help books, which had whoopee cushions filled with paint. And so when I ran them over, I created these monochrome paintings. So this is a cast of the underside of the machine. And it was tied, these kind of 3-dimensional canvases were were tied or bungee corded into the machine between the body of the machine and the blade. And as it roamed around that green area and chopped things up, it created these monochrome paintings. And sometimes they would slip, so you see how they got damaged by the blade of the machine. When you looked at them up close, you could read the words. It was really a sort of incredible poetic object, because all these words that were all these self-help words and stuff were all kind of blended together into these strange sentences and landscapes. And so they were all hung together, and then the machine itself was seen. There's also a video component to this project where it was all recorded on the machine. So the video camera was attached to the machine itself, and as it ate up the books, you could see this happening. It almost looked like a wild animal eating these self-help books. So I really began to think about the movement of the machine that I was making and how to capture it, and is that an art object in its own? It was very much about the process that I was recording. So, it's funny because process is so personal, and I was really showing everything at once, the process of making the piece, and the tool. So it was very revealing. And I did a series of works with this, the video component combined with the work and the tool. Then I ended up going to Roswell at a grant there for a year. And in Roswell is where the first liquid fuel rocket was created. Goddard did this. And so in the museum were all of these really incredible, oddly made, homemade rockets. And you can see them on the bottom there. And this kind of MacGyver-ish kind of thing inspired me a lot. I was thinking about rockets. It was right after 9/11, like 2 months after 9/11. I had been in New York, and it was an extremely upsetting experience being there. So to escape to New Mexico was great, but I still had all of this war stuff on my mind and what was going on at the time. So I was thinking a lot about rockets. I was thinking a lot about guns. I was thinking about violence. All these things was what I started to make art out of once I got there. So I went to a pawn shop, and I used their guns to create these mandala-like snowflake forms, which I call gun flakes. So they're just rubbings on very thin paper. I used a Japanese technique of using graphite powder and linseed oil into a paste and then rubbing it with animal skin onto the gun to create these these circular forms. Each make of a gun, of course, is a different type. I mean, these are really hard for me to look at now because they were made at a time when, at a different time. Now they feel so much more violent, even though they're more snowflake-like. They are still snowflake-like and mandala-like. They're still very violent to me. But this is where I was at the time. And I was envisioning these. This is an AK-47, so it's very big. Each of those panels is one of those panels. That's one panel, and this is 12 or whatever, 16 or more. So I was envisioning these as kind of a blizzard, a virtual blizzard of these guns. Sort of a harmless blizzard of these beautiful snowflake forms. At the same time, I was also looking at the Coyote Roadrunner saga out there. This landscape is New Mexico to me, with all these forms, and I was very interested in recreating many of the episodes in a tabletop ceramic form. So these are all death scenes. So what I wanted to happen at this point was, this scenario, usually the Roadrunner gets away every time. But in my scenarios, I wanted the Roadrunner to die. So these are called death scenes. And in this case, the coyote was on a jet-propelled hopping machine. And so these are so violent, I like them now, but it was the context of where they were made and when they were made sense to me at that point. This is probably around 6 feet long. It's in many parts, and it's all kind of put together, and all the scenes are hidden by little rocks that I made and whatnot, so it looks like one piece, but it's many pieces. This is a death scene where the coyote's put on a cactus outfit, and he's surprised the Roadrunner and then got him there. And in this case, the Roadrunner was attacked by a fifth of bees, it's called. The reason why I've included these is the forms of these pieces have come up with new painting machines that I've created. So landscape is extremely important in my work, and I'm making work outside often, and although the imagery is not of a landscape, it's there because I'm part of the landscape when I'm making the work. I also created these cartoon cells that are 8 by 10 inches with flash of the Roadrunner exploding. So I was thinking of rockets, I was thinking of exploding things, and out of all these projects, the one project that's really stayed with me long term and has evolved over the years is using fireworks and smoke bombs rather to create artwork. So on the top you see what a smoke bomb is, and many of you might recognize those. They're kind of these no gunpowder in them. They just make beautiful smoke clouds, and there's no sound. And so what I did is I started to contain them under buckets onto paper and create large abstractions. This is probably around 70 inches long. Many of my projects come to me at times when I least expect them. In this case, we had been putting on sort of an amateur firework thing for the other little kids and stuff at the residency. And I remember having a blue smoke bomb in my hand, and then it dropped, and it just rolled a perfect dotted blue line onto the pavement. And I thought to myself, wow, I had no idea that this could be a mark-making object, or mechanism rather. So once that happened, I started to just use containers and overlap and collage. A lot of the overlapping you're seeing is a collage of different explosions on top of each other in different layers. It's almost like a woven tapestry of explosions. And this is also very large. All the color is from the fireworks smoke, and the complex colors is from mixing them within containers. Usually they come in primary colors. At the same time, I was also awarded a Marie Walsh Art Studio in New York for a year. And during that time, I worked on quite a few different projects. This is a project that is called the Royal Pine Tree, and it's made out of 6,600 Royal Pine air fresheners. So they were scaled together very closely on these long branches, and they gave out like an incredible stink. So there was a scent component to this, and actually Mark de Subaru has his shop just on the other side. He's one of the founders of Socrates, on the other side of the park, and they could smell it for months. I mean, when the wind changed, it followed you. So at the opening, people were keeping their distance from it. As the smell shifted, they would run, but you could get very close to it when it was not going your way, you know. But what I loved about this piece is that the animals interacted with it very aggressively. The dogs peed on it. The birds built their nests in there, believe it or not. I guess they don't smell. I don't know. But this is a reclaimed piece of land here. So the idea behind this was that out of the garbage grows like a garbage tree. You know, the whole show was about work dealing with the environment and the yard. So this was something that would grow in the yard of Socrates. At the same time, I was working on this project with the Lower East Side print shop. Does anybody know what this is? It's a subway car, but it's called a Redbird. There are no more in New York City. They were decommissioned about 2002 because of, well, this is the story, because of asbestos that was within the walls. And the only way to stabilize the walls of the asbestos was to sink them into the ocean so that they could become reef, like a nesting area for little creatures in an area where there is nowhere for them to reproduce, like no rock structures or anything. So right now there's a ton of these outside in the Atlantic Ocean, down south, and they've become like miniature, communities of fish and things, and you can dive down there too. Anyway, long story short, I was lucky because I was able to get all the windows that had all the graffiti on them from these cars. Now they have a different kind of glass that you can't scratch into. But with these cars, you could scratch into the glass with an acid pen or with like a diamond. And I don't know if many of you remember this, but there was a time in New York where a lot of the windows had the graffiti on it. So what I did is I took the windows and we created prints from them, dry point etchings. And so each of these prints, of course, is the size and the shape of the window of the subway. And what you cannot tell from this photo is that the green paper where the print is, it's like a Coke color green, so it looks like a glass. And then it's printed on white paper. It's chincollate onto white paper. So it prints all the words backwards. So for me, it was interesting to see who had written backwards when they scraped into the window for the outside to see, and who had written forward for the inside to read. So some words go backwards, some words go forward. And what it really is like, it's a record of just endless hours of people writing and recording things on these windows. And many of these things you would never see even if they were not printed because of the fine, they don't look fine now, but there were fine scratches that we were able to kind of pull out through a process of creating a special ink to use on this. They're very large prints, and those windows are the signal windows, so they weren't, if you were sitting in the subway car, you couldn't reach those. They were on the outside. They would say where the subway was going, Brooklyn, the Bronx, whatever. So that's why there are no scratches on those windows, those three windows on the side there. This time I was also going into arcades and playing video games and then capturing them with my camera. So I was interested in capturing like a full life in cyberspace from the beginning, like playing and then when you die. So I would open the aperture, I would open the camera, and this is on film, 4x5 film. Open the camera when I first started playing, and then when I died I would close it and then extract the image from the context, which is the numbers, the high score, and how many guys you had, and the credit, and all that. And then I had the image of the game. And so this is well, if anybody plays Tempest, they know that I died after the second board. But if you didn't know that, so this is about 5 minutes of playing. But the more you play, the more marks that I would capture on these in these photographs. So this is Gyrus and Tempest, and this is Gyrus, short played, as you can see. But this looked like an iris to me. So there were all these images that you don't see because they go so quickly. When you're playing, these things disappear, and all you see is your ship shooting inward. They're all vector-based games, so I was able to use this method really easily with the vector graphics. And they all dealt with war. So still, I was kind of thinking about that. It was on my mind. They're all 80s games that dealt with, in this case, you're attacking aliens. This is the bonus round, and if I had been really good at playing this, you wouldn't see any marks on them because I would have got them all when they came in. I would have shot them all. But you would know that if you played the game. This looked like an eye to me too. So I was just really interested in just recording these ephemeral images that one never sees, but you do see them because it's in your collective memory in some way, right? I was also interested in Evel Knievel and creating paintings with my Evel Knievel pinball machine. So eventually I had a show in St. Paul that showed this at Midway Art Gallery there. So what I did is I put paint on the balls, and I took off the glass that's on top of what is called the playfield. The playfield is where you play your game inside the machine. And I fit paper that fit right into the machine, allowing for the bumpers to stick out and everything. And then when I took the paintings out, I had these kind of elongated, they look like skull-like things that recorded each of my game, my playing. So if it's more red, that means that I played the red ball more. If it was more blue, that means I played the blue ball more. I had 3 balls. One was white. They were all with oil paint. So white, oil paint, blue, and then red. So these are all, they're like these kinematic maps that record the kinetics of the machine, but also my decisions while I'm playing them. And I love the way they felt like these sort of these veins or something that were going through the game itself, the lifeblood of the game. They were hung behind the vintage pinball glass that was on top of the machine there. So that's why they fit nicely into the glass. And then I always have like a book of like, I'd love to do this project. And at one point I had been, I think I was at an amusement park in Kings Dominion, which is in Virginia. And I was sitting on a scrambler ride, which is what you see here. And I thought to myself, my gosh, it's like a big spirograph painting machine. So I made a drawing and I thought about it. And then I got contacted by this space, Grand Arts in Kansas City, and they said they wanted to do a project with me. So I said, what's your budget? And they said, we have no budget. And I was like, okay, well then do this project. So we bought a scrambler machine and we turned it into a big, an amusement park ride, the scrambler, turned into a big painting machine. So this is 60 by 60 feet, the vinyl square is 60 by 60 feet. And this is like a giant printer. Think of it as a giant printer. We had one color, using one color at a time, and it was all like this really stupid mechanics where we had to press that on button once it hit full speed. And there was a compressor as well as a power source on there, and it would just spray it down onto the ground. So as the machine was going at high speed, the image comes out like almost a perfect spirograph painting. So this is at the Queens Museum. They have, every 2 years, they have a Queens International Show. At that time I was living in Queens, in Sunnyside. So they invited me to show this piece in their space. There's also a video component as well to this piece. But I used the colors from the machine itself. So this was a machine which reminded me of Modrian colors. It had black, white, and then the three primary colors. So I used those colors to create all the artwork. So some of them are more yellow, some of them are more red, some of them are more blue. But there's always the same palette. So where the nozzle was placed on the machine, if it was, in towards the middle part that turns, you would get a basket, sort of like what I call more of a basket weave, the inner part. And then if we attached the nozzle to we had a piece of 2-foot piece of rebar that was coming, you can't see it because it's coming straight at us. If we had attached the spigot to that, then you would get more of this pointy, it's just exactly like a spirograph drawing machine if you have one when you're little. It acts the same exact way. And this is another one. With the 60 by 60 foot images, canvas size, we were able to get these really larger images. And then this is 48 by 48 feet, so we really couldn't get more of those pointy designs on the end of this because we just didn't have the space. But then I really didn't want to work as large scale anymore. So when I got back to my studio, I started to think again about my firework drawings. And at that time, I was thinking, I should be able to glaze with the fireworks, but I don't really know how to do it. And I don't know really how to glaze. So I began to work on these large format paintings using a lot of glazing, like traditional glazing. They're all oil. And combining a lot of my ideas from all my projects in there. And these are still an enigma to me. I look at them and I have no idea what they're about, but I know that they are they're very deep for me and I don't really know what they are. So I created these objects that lit up and I painted from them into the painting. So that's a close-up of one of the objects that's made out of a lot of different things, mainly plastic flowers, and a lot of Christmas lights are in there too. So I was trying to get an object that was impossible to paint realistically, but would give me a lot of inspiration to paint from. So I began these paintings, and that one was called Meadow. And just thought about glazing and combining a lot of the ideas I had. There's some guns there that are twirling around. That middle structure looks a lot like some of the later firework drawings that I've been working on. There's just a lot of stuff in here, and I don't know how else to talk about these really at all yet. Maybe 50 years from now I'll be able to, who knows. But I spent 2 years painting these very large paintings. This is called Yard. Working from outside, plein air, working from a space, and then adding things into it. This is called Sight. I had a studio in Williamsburg at that point, and they were building a lot of these big buildings that are now finished in Brooklyn. So there was a lot of construction sites to go to and take photos of and work and paint from. And a lot of this painting has those in there. Trail, I think this is called. So I began to really think about glazing and layering these firework pieces. I'm dragging my containers now, which I wasn't doing before. It took me about, 4 years to come up with the idea that I could actually drag these. It's a very slow process because it's so violent and it's so chaotic. It's taken me many years to, it's a good dance partner for me because I'm a quick thinker and this slows me down, and it's extremely meditative for me to make these pieces. And that's because it's such a chaotic dance partner, I call it, that the control that I have over it, it can't be too much and it can't be too little. So with this work, I've just spent over 10 years trying to find the place where I can exist, where it's not too much control and it's not too little control. It's like this fine line. And for some reason, I can't give these damn things up because I keep on coming back to them regardless of how many other projects I do. And each project that I do, outside of this, fireworks, it gives me a new idea for my firework pieces. So I began to attach the fireworks to the pole. I mean, it took me 2 years to realize I could do that. I mean, you would think right away, you would think, oh, I could put it on a pole, I could do that. It could be that it's such a bewitching medium for me that I get so deep into it that it just takes a long time to kind of unravel it. So I was using 2x4s to kind of make lines with it. Combining them together to make, I think this is about 83 inches high, to make these large pieces on paper with many layers of collage and many different techniques now, combining them together to try to create paintings. Here's another large one. If you have any questions, just ask me. So you see these white tube things there? That's where the firework lays, and then the smoke kind of goes around it, and when you take away the firework, you get a ghost image of the firework. It really is related to photography in that way, in some ways. But it's not. There's no photographic anything here. So there is the ghost of the mechanism that's left on all the pieces. So if you see a dot, that's the round smoke bomb. If you see a line, it's one of the bigger canisters of smoke. So those become part of the image as well. Just to show you what they look this face together. I began to cut into the paper, fold it over, and ignite in between the seams of it. That allowed me to get almost like a Rorschach kind of image that I started to add into the pieces here. So I would cut into the piece, mend it, and then just go over it with new paint, collage, new explosions over it to kind of really create a woven image. It's very woven. You could take it, I could take it apart and figure out what I did first, second, and third. It would take a while, but it really is a build-up. It's almost like for those of you who dive, like a coral reef, how it builds on top of each other, and it just keeps on building and building into this complex kind of thing. And that's how I view these. Thinking a lot more about dimension now as well. Again, I created these long pieces of fireworks that are lit with on a fuse, and then it's folded over and lit. And then this is the same piece. Then I collage over it. Ripping up pieces, that's what those white areas are. Ripping up old firework drawings and gluing them on there. Just trying everything to kind of create a new image or shake it up or get it going or do whatever. Lots of different techniques going on here. another one. These are all large format, so basically 89 inches long. Began to think about the explosions. I don't know, the space, it's not really an explosion, it expels the smoke. And I was thinking of the firework as having a breath. And so I wanted to capture that breath somehow. So I spent like a long time trying to figure out how can I create or capture the breath of a firework without losing it like I have been. You know, I capture it within a container, but then it's gone. I mean, I'm fighting, this type of painting is called fumage, you know, it is developed by the surrealists using candles. They used candles. But my medium goes up into the air, so my color is always escaping into the sky. I lose it upwards, not downwards. So I wanted to capture the whole thing into one sculpture and think about the space it would create. So what sculptural medium would I use? Well, I thought, well, I'll blow up a soft I'll have dirt, I'll bury the fireworks, I'll blow it up, and then somehow I'm going to cast that. I mean, that was just impossible. So I finally came to glass, and glass is great. It's like bubble gum, you know? So I was able to control the breath of the firework enough to create forms. So that's what I did. I was an artist in residence at VCU, and I worked with the MFA students there and Jack Wax, who runs the department, to develop the technique of capturing the breath of a firework in glass. So what you see is the fireworks in the middle, and then once I put the second pancake on there, I was able to control the breath to create these glass forms. I have no idea why these turn that color. We can't figure it out. Sometimes they're clear and sometimes they're not. Then we started to add color to them. So when it blew, when it kind of expelled its breath, it would stretch the image of whatever we had put down. So in this case, we made rondelles, and then as it expanded, it kind of created these firework things, or this image of a... So these were fun, but I wanted to go much bigger, and I really couldn't get them bigger than like that without working with like maybe 6 gaffers or something. So all I had was a couple of gaffers, and this is an idea I'd like to pursue again, maybe in at a different shop. But so that led to these. So these are the smoke painting machines. So I was thinking of the cavity of the machine, or of the breath of the firework, and then I transformed that into a movable smoke painting machine. So that's what these are. This is Sky City. It's made out of a lot of different kinds of material, mainly plaster and resin. It's all gessoed, found wood. And then the fireworks are up on top, and they're all put together with fuses so that they go off at once, and that the pressure is constant within each of these as they mix. So the bottom has holes, and as the pressure builds up within the container, the tool, it shoots out of the bottom of these holes and creates imagery that way. Have any of you guys done fresco before? So in traditional fresco, you make like a cartoon with the holes, and then you pounce your pigment into it. And I was very interested in that technique because I was a student. I spent 2 years in Italy, and I worked in restoration. I studied art history, but I was always fascinated by those cartoons because they were so cool. And so anyway, this is sort of my understanding of those cartoons in some way. But so then once the fireworks goes off, the pressure has to be really good, or else it won't come out strong enough, right? And they are very close to the ground, to the paper, about 1/8 of an inch, and they're on wheels, so I can move them. But it's like my stature. Each tool is tailored to me because as I use them, they self-edit their form. So I'll use it and then I'll hit something on it and it will fall off, and then once that happens I leave it off permanently because that means that it doesn't work with my stature and my movement. So I make a machine that's not too heavy that I can move, and then once I use it, it self-edits, and then I go with the form, and then I keep working with it, and I have to repair them all the time. So they're always growing and changing, and so this was a series of work that I developed at Art OMI when I was in residence there, and I made a bunch of tools. I wasn't naming them yet, but this one was Sky Cities, came after my residency. So it makes these very large paintings in the back, and the tool does get very encrusted with soot and color and stained, and but then I keep working on it and I keep adding to it and I keep repairing it. So it's never, just like any tool you have, like a car, you're always going to replace the brakes on it. So this is the way that I treat my tools. They're tools to me. I know they're sculptures because I've made them, right? But they're tools. I don't sell them. And at some point they become sculptures because I can't use them anymore. And the reason why I can't use them anymore is because they become so encrusted with crap in the inside of it that hasn't escaped through those holes, that the buildup becomes so great that they become non-functional. And here's another one. These are all very large.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the thought process that goes behind the colors you decide to put together?
With these,
Yeah.
I was still experimenting and developing the idea. So I didn't know exactly how the colors were going to mix. Sometimes the colors don't even go off. So you're working within a system that is, well, it's very quick too, because you only have like 2 minutes or 3 minutes before they stop working completely. So really, I'm releasing into the process completely. It's not me deciding where things go. It's me working with the tool and using it, and we move together. Like, if the tool doesn't want to go somewhere, I don't force it to go. It's really, it doesn't even feel like I have it after a while. It's just like we become one and we just dance, and wherever we go, we go. And sometimes, often, a lot of things happen. Things like shoot out of it. It was a faulty made firework, like all this weird stuff. So I know that it's not going to blow up, and I'm not going to die. So I know that. So I feel very safe within the process, but I can't. It's a fine line between the control and the chaos. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
It's a short amount of time too, so I can't sit. Like, as soon as I light that thing, I'm there. Like, when I was doing my paintings, it would take me like sometimes 6 hours to get all the crap out of my head from the day, like everything. It was just like, I was just like this, it was pathetic. Like, I couldn't, I was like this stereotype painter, like this, painter. You know what I mean? But once I light those fireworks up, everything's gone. It's like I am immediately within the process and nothing else matters. It's there. I'm there, it's there, and when it's ended, it's fine. However it ends, it's fine. There's never a mistake that I make because I'm collaborating with this crazy machine I've made, and it does what it does. So I do a lot of drawings, and work out stuff, but I don't follow them completely, So I wanted to show you, this is Moon Map. It's gone through a lot of changes, and this is how it started. And then I painted it gray, and then used it, whatever. Then I've been lacquering the surfaces now thickly with glitter. So they're very smooth surfaces that are very glittery. So they look like amusement park rides. You know what I mean? That glittery, like the old school amusement park rides that have like layers of this glitter stuff, and then you sit, that are flashy. So then it went through this stage. This is Moon Map. And that black tape is like, I had to repair that. I'm always repairing these things. Always. They're always breaking, and they're always, this is a close-up. And then this is Moon Map now, where I've added, I'm thinking about putting it in in more of a geometric I had to contain it. I didn't like the way it was, the outside of it. I would use it, I didn't like it. So I wanted to contain it within a form. And I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not. But then I put all these lights on it. So there's 2 sets of lights. So this is actually a nighttime machine. This is it at night. I mean, I haven't really used it yet. I think I'm gonna need 3 people to use it. At first I could use 1 person, and then it came to 2, and now I think it's 3 people. So this is much more of a collaborative machine. But it just keeps growing, and I'm not sure if this is right yet. But anyway, I just wanted to show you how there's many stages to the sculpture itself, or the tool itself. It doesn't stop growing and developing until it becomes totally non-functional, and in this case, it might become so heavy that I can't use it anymore. And then it will just kind of be one of those tools that creates like a big black smudge or something. Mm-hmm. Then I can use that with the other tools that are more light. But it will stop being it will be a sculpture when I stop adding to it. This is another example of wormhole. I used this once as like a demo, and I didn't like it because I felt like those 5 fireworks were gonna hit my foot. So I got very nervous when I used it, and so I wanted to change it. And so this is what it looks like now. That's wormhole now. So it's all like completely kind of covered up those 5 firework entry points. And this is just a close-up. You can see some of the glitter in there. When I move it, it really looks like this amusement park ride, a fish or something, just twirling around. It's very captivating to me. I really like moving them around. And that's why I put the glitter on it, because with all the smoke and everything, it's hard for me to stay attached to using the tool because I lose visual on it. So the more lights and stuff I put on it, then I can see it when there's a lot of smoke going on when I'm creating the work. This is the quad axle. You're looking from above. This is DS8. And that's only about this big. I haven't used this one yet, and there's a lot of projectiles on it, and I am afraid that many of them will get chipped off when I use it. But that's what will happen, and then it will have a new form when that happens. So now I'm combining my many techniques that I've developed before with the smoke painting machines to create what I call now smoke painting. So they're not firework drawings anymore. So you can see how I'm incorporating. I'm trying. I'm not happy. I mean, I'm okay with it. But I feel like the drawings, the firework drawings of the forms being built up, are actually drawings from my smoke painting machines themselves, because they become so dimensional that these, to me, look like the machines. So anyway. And these are all large. So this would be like 89 inches tall, or 73 inches tall, rather. With this one, I was drawing with the pole and then using the smoke painting machines and building the surface in the other ways. And I think that this is my last image. This is my smallest piece I've shown you. It's about 33 by 36 inches. That's where I end my talk. Thank you.